I think, okay, thank you.
Yeah,
So, let me see. The point of this interview was to hopefully talk about the wildfires and like if you have any relation to them or what your company what you do or what your company does in relation to it, or if you have any thoughts you might want to share.
sure. Uh, do
Also,
you
I
have,
just wanted to preface this by saying that this is going to be like a sh on the shorter side of an interview, like maybe about 10 or 12 minutes at most, because I need
okay,
to condense this down into a short form video.
okay. Not a problem. I'll just blab on and whatever is of use, you can take
I'll
from it
cobble
what you need.
together, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so my name's Todd Palillo. I'm a principal here at KA Design Group. We're a firm that's been around about 37 years. I've been here 25 of those 37 years. Um, and actually has I've worked on a handful of projects over the years in the Palisades, and our firm as a whole has probably done, I would say, anywhere from 10 to 15 residences in the Palisades or thereabouts over the years. Some of them were remodels and things like that. Um, and and I'd say about 7 or 8 of them were lost in the fires. Now, most of those homes had traded hands since then. So because the new owners never had a relationship with them as the architects, they haven't necessarily approached us. Um, but on the other hand, we had one project that we did that was completed in the Palisades only about 4 or 5 years ago. And so the clients came back to us within weeks after the fire and said, we want it back exactly as is. And that project, in fact, was one of the first to be submitted under uh, there's some different channels or routes that resubmittals can take. The fastest way to resubmit a project is to build back exactly as was there before. And since we already had a permitted set of drawings from 5 years ago, I mean, the clients didn't even want to change the color of paint on the walls. That's how much they just wanted their home back. So that's at the extreme end of being able to have something realized very quickly. And that house is under construction now. But the vast majority of our relationship with the Palisades right now are with a lot of uh, residents that really in the first 6 to 9 months as they came to our office, it was more therapy than architecture because they were just dealing with so many big decisions. For instance, okay, I want to rebuild, I want to move back into my community. But by the time that's all done, my children will have been at a different school for 3 years and established new relationships. How much do we want to uproot them again? That's just one example of some of the just the emotional decisions that need to go into rebuilding and that we're helping them figure out as their architect. Um, the Another aspect of how our firm in particular has been contributing is there's an organization, Crest Development, Crest Real Estate, that orchestrated a really interesting program called Case Study 2.0. And if you may know of the original case study program from the immediately post-war in the mid-century,
Mhm.
that produced upwards of 25 or 30 different case study homes that were built all throughout the greater Los Angeles, Southern California region that were intended to be sort of models of modern living, done with more simple materials, constructed in more, with prefabricated components. People might think of the Charles and Ray Eames house that's in the Palisades. It's a classic example of that case study movement. Well, we created a new one called Case Study 2.0, and there was about 40 participating architects who all submitted designs, very modest designs for very modest, 2,500 to 3,000 square foot homes, and designed to fit on fairly universal standard size lots in the Palisades, although there's many different types of lots that slope in different shapes, but trying to maybe use the alphabet streets as a model for that. And the idea with this is that there's many people out there that lost their homes, want to rebuild, but never really had considered that they needed a architect to do a custom home, and maybe not even were in the mindset that that's the kind of process that they needed. It's a long process to work with an architect and design a custom home as opposed to just something to replace what you had. Most of the market right now is being dominated by the developers that come in with spec home designs that have no relationship with the clients, no custom consideration. So this case study program is meant to kind of fill that void where people that wouldn't normally go approach an architect for custom home can, because there's 40 different custom design homes by 40 different architects to choose from. And if they like a particular design, they can partner up with that architect. And we've all agreed as a community to provide our services to complete the documentation, design, permitting at a vastly reduced fee. So that is something that I personally have been working with a handful of rebuild victims, and it's been very rewarding. It's been very rewarding to be able to to give something to somebody that they didn't think that they'd ever have, to build back. But it's also been, for me, because I'm not a Palisades resident, even though I have a lot of friends and acquaintances that live in the Palisades and lost home, working with them and getting the sort of firsthand perspective of what they went through. And I'll give two examples. One client I was working with, her name was Anne Marie, lost her home. She's middle-aged, she's widowed. And as we were discussing on a call, the new design for her house, I had mentioned to her, oh, well, if you have the floor plans to your old house, we can compare the room sizes of what you had to what we're doing now. And she said very succinctly, I had floor plans. And I realized what she was saying was that everything she had went up in smoke. And later that day, when she came into the office, I gave her a book of our projects, and she looked at the book and she said, "Oh, this will be my first coffee table book," meaning she has no books because they were all gone. And it's moments like that that really gave me chills a little bit on that. Uh, yeah, so everything from that to having conversations, and I'd made a comment about fireplaces and like the comfort smell of smoke, and they kind of laughed like, I don't think we'll ever enjoy the smell of smoke again. So that's just a few slivers of working intimately with people trying to rebuild.
Hmm. It sounds very impactful for you.
Yeah. Um,
Like,
it's Go on.
I was going to say, like, have you, like, what was the most impactful part of the wildfires that for you personally?
I think I think a couple things. I, as I said, didn't have any particular family that lived there,
Hmm.
but colleagues of mine right here in the office, um, their parents still, they lost their home in the Palisades. And seeing what my colleague Brad, the aftermath of what he was dealing with, trying to relocate the parents and help with all that. I just and I literally was sitting next to him during, in the office as this was all going on. That gave me like a firsthand exposure of the complexities and the immediacy of it. On a professional level, it was sad to see some of the projects that I worked on destroyed. Not nearly as sad as it must be for the owners, but projects that we took pride in nonetheless. Um, and I think you know, I've spent plenty of time in the Palisades, and driving back up through there, uh, I'd say about 3 months after the fires. Uh, this was impactful in a positive way. Most people, they in the immediacy afterwards, were asking questions like, why does anyone want to go back there? It's this devastated landscape. It's a wasteland. Talking about it as if it's some sort of post-apocalyptic disaster zone, and it was a disaster zone. But as you walk through there, you realize there's no place where you would be at in the Palisades where you couldn't see off in the distance or in one direction or another parts of the neighborhood that survived. And you realize that while there's devastation, there's still a strong fabric of the original Palisades that's still there that can be grafted onto and regrown. So the idea that it's this hard reboot of an entire community is not the case. There's so much there to to tap into, and yeah, it's an experience to be up there.
Mm. Well, well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah.
If there's anything else you'd like to say, like any personal anecdotes or observations you've had?
Uh, well, I'll mention because we have been submitting new projects to get built, that we have seen they've gotten better with the permit approval process. Originally, back in the spring, I think it was taking, I don't know, 60, 70 days, excuse me, to get a permit approved, which I should say 60, 70 days in normal times is very quick. But they've actually been able to get that down to between 40 and 50 days, which is significant. Even getting a week or two better, um, as months go by, is improvement. It shows that they're really focused on streamlining this process. So that's been encouraging. A little less so though is you know more properties have been sold than permits submitted for rebuild. And of the properties sold, there's a mix between properties sold to private people, another family, another interested party, and lots that are sold to entities, to corporations and um, uh, development concerns. And that's a little disheartening because what that means is, those are the ones that are swooping into, um, I don't want to say take advantage, but they don't represent the community that was there. They represent an outside interest in wanting to develop the properties there.
Mm.
So that's it, it's just a sort of sign of the times. I also say that it's unfortunate, but before even the fire started, Los Angeles and Southern California in general was suffering from some of the most inflated construction costs I've ever seen. I've never seen, this is, of course, a bit of an impact from COVID and how that impacted the building industry, and then things were picking up again. But construction prices, labor, all of that. I mean, there's not a worse time right now to be spending money on new construction. Um, so that has put a lot of pressure on this whole effort. And of course, I mean, there's plenty of news out there about the complexities of navigating the insurance payouts. Um, for most people, they might have a home that, before the fires, might be a 1940s ranch house that they lived in since a child, or inherited from their parents and lived there up until the fires. And maybe that home was $1.5 million in value.
Mm.
Maybe they realized about 1 million of that in insurance payout, because insurance just doesn't have an interest in paying out 100%. But then to rebuild on that same property, there's a couple big considerations. One is maybe that original house was 1,500 square feet. Well, um, you, the economics of it to rebuild, you can't just rebuild 1,500 square feet when the lot itself can bear more development, because otherwise you're underdeveloping a property, and that, in a sense, that's sort of throwing away money. So now owners are, they maybe have $1 million to work with. To build back the house even as is might cost 2 million, but to build what would get market return on it might be 3 million. So that's having to spend 3 times as much on the house. And these might be for people that had finally paid off their mortgage, and were not looking to get mired in another mortgage late in life. So it's unfortunate, but these are the economic forces that are also forcing people to move on and find uh, new communities to settle in.
Hmm. Wow. Well, thank you for your time. This was
Yeah,
very
you bet.
insightful.
Good.
Can you email me the recording? Like
Okay.
once
Oh,
we,
yeah, because that's going to go on to, yeah, I'll do that for you.
yeah.
No problem.
Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Okay, take care.
You too.